This is CNN Breaking News.
Hello, I'm Wolf Blitzer in Washington. Wherever you're watching from around the world, thanks very much for joining us. We begin with breaking news. The suspect in a callous and cold-blooded murder posted on Facebook has killed himself. The death of suspect Steve Stevens brings an end to a tense nationwide manhunt here in the United States. Stevens was accused of gunning down Robert Godwin as Godwin was walking home from Easter Sunday dinner with his family. The Cleveland police chief tells how the search for Stevens ended.
At approximately a little bit after 11 today, Pennsylvania State police officers received a tip that the vehicle that we were looking for, the white Ford Fusion, was in a McDonald's parking lot near Erie, PA. Those officers responded. The vehicle fled from that area. There was a short pursuit in which the vehicle was stopped. As the officers approached that vehicle, Steve Stevens took his own life.
The victim's daughter says she wishes the search had ended differently. Brenda Heyman tells CNN, and I'm quoting her now, "All I can say is that I wish he had gone down in a hail of 100 bullets." Our correspondent Sarah Ganim is joining us now live from Cleveland. Sarah, what more can you tell us about how all of this unfolded?
Police are telling us, Wolf, this all unfolded just after 11 o'clock, just more than 2 hours ago. Someone called in a tip about that vehicle that has been broadcast across the country that they were looking for, that white Ford Fusion with temporary tags that they believe that Steve Stevens was driving. Someone called in a tip that it was in a McDonald's parking lot near Erie, Pennsylvania. A Pennsylvania state trooper, saw the vehicle, followed it, pursued it, brief pursuit, was able to pull the vehicle over near Buffalo Road and Downing Road in Erie County, Pennsylvania. Shortly after Steve Stevens pulled over, authorities are telling us that he killed himself, a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He killed himself before he was approached by officers. Pennsylvania State Police confirmed this in a tweet just before noon, saying that they had pulled the vehicle over and that Steve Stevens was dead. And shortly after that, Cleveland police and authorities here, including the FBI and U.S. Marshal's Office, confirmed what the Pennsylvania State Police had tweeted out. Now, we know that Erie, Pennsylvania had been a focus of this investigation from the start. Shortly after the killing here in Cleveland of 74-year-old Robert Godwin, there was a ping detected from the suspect's cell phone that Erie police were investigating. A ping had been picked up, and officers from Cleveland involved in the investigation, along with the FBI, they went to Erie, they searched the area. When that search turned up nothing, that search was essentially abandoned, but officers were told today we're headed back there to continue searching when all of this unfolded. Now, the chief of police told us that, this is an area that's very remote, a lot of places to hide, and that he said that it was one of those many tips that was followed up on that eventually led to the end of this manhunt. Now, we had known from the beginning that Steve Stevens might be suicidal, that this might be the way that this ended. He had been posting on his Facebook rants about being suicidal, about telling his mother that. That's something that she also confirmed to CNN. And the chief, in speaking to the community today, talked about the social media aspect of this and how that became a factor. Take a listen to what he said.
I think everybody has learned from this. I think the people on social media kind of know the power, and I think they know the harm it can do. So we've talked before about people not living their lives on social media and being truthful in social media and not harming people via social media. And, this is a prime example. This is something that should not have been shared around the world, period.
Now, I am learning right now, Wolf, as you and I are speaking, that they are looking for possible connections between the suspect and Erie, Pennsylvania. And one of the places that they are looking is the casino. We know that Steve Stevens talked about the casino here in Cleveland. He talked about gambling and losing everything. We know that court documents show he was having financial problems, that there were judgments against him. His wages were being garnished for non-payment to landlords. And I'm being told right now that they're also looking at possible connections at the casino in Erie, Pennsylvania, whether or not he may have been frequenting that casino as well. So they're looking at all possible connections to why this manhunt would have unfolded, would have ended in that location, Wolf.
And Sarah, very quickly, the police chief said they're still continuing, clearly, the investigation. Is there any indication that during the 3 days this guy was on the run, he had any assistance, any help from anyone?
Hi, how are you doing?
There is no indication at this point. Of course, they have been looking into the people that he was talking to. Earlier today, before this manhunt came to a conclusion, the police chief here said that they knew that he had been in contact with people, that they had talked to some of those people. Some of those people were family, some were friends. They were urging others who may have had contact to come forward. There was some speculation by authorities that the fact that he had been on the run for this many days without any detection, no license plate was picked up, no additional pings from that cell phone, that they believed that there was a possibility that he was being aided, but there is no evidence to show that he was being harbored in any way. At this point, that's just something that they're looking into, but they have no evidence at this point, Wolf.
All right, Sarah Ghanem on the scene for us in Cleveland, Ohio. Let's bring in our panel, our law enforcement analysts, Art Roderick and Cedric Alexander, and CNN national correspondent Deb Farrick. Art, so walk us through this investigation. The suspect killed himself in this last few moments with the state police in Erie, Pennsylvania. So what happens now?
Well, I think nobody is surprised in law enforcement circles that he did end up killing himself. It was almost like the video was his final, the posting of the video and the killing of Mr. Godwin was going to be his final big issue. Now, he threatened to kill other people afterwards, and I think that was the tense part of this whole law enforcement search. It's interesting that we're referencing the casino in Erie, Pennsylvania. That actually would be a pretty good place to hide out for a few days.
Why would that be hiding?
Well, they're open for 24 hours. The only issue I see here is that casinos have some of the best surveillance video going in this country. So if he was in there, if he was gaming, if he was just hiding out in there, there'll be plenty of video of him doing that. It's just odd. If that's the only connection he has to Erie, was he sleeping in his car? Was he hiding out in one of the areas? You know, did he break into a cabin or hide out there? This is a very rural area, and that is a distinct possibility.
Cedric, you're not surprised that all this ends with his committing suicide?
No, I'm not surprised at all. And typically in these types of situations, we have seen this. I had somewhat predicted this along with many other law enforcement officials across the country. So I'm not surprised at all, Wolf. But I think the important piece is, at this point going forward, is to really try to make sense out of where did this all come from? What happened to him over some course of period of time that led him up to this type of violent and heinous act in killing Mr. Godwin, who was totally unknown to him and just an innocent man. So hopefully a deep dive is taking into some of his social and psychosocial history so we can maybe garner or learn something as to what was in the mind of Mr. Stevens before he killed this man and took his own life.
Hold on for a moment. The Facebook CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, is speaking at a developers conference in San Jose, California. He's addressing the video that Steve Stevens posted on Facebook that showed Stevens killing a complete stranger. The 74-year-old grandfather was simply walking down the street. Let's listen in to see what he's said just moments ago.
And we have a lot more to do here. And we're reminded of this this week by the tragedy in Cleveland. And our hearts go out to the family and friends of Robert Godwin Sr. And we have a lot of work, and we will keep doing all we can to prevent tragedies like this from happening.
Mark Zuckerberg, the CEO of Facebook, speaking about the Facebook connection to this murder. Deb Farrick, it's so sad to know that apparently just randomly this individual goes up to this grandfather, shoots them, then posts the video online, blames his ex-girlfriend for all of this. There are lessons in social media that everyone has to learn from this, including Zuckerberg.
Well, yeah, there's absolutely no question about that. As a matter of fact, the chief of police there in Cleveland said that people have to learn how to not live online, and this kind of material should not be put on Facebook or not have people should not have access. It is traumatizing for people to see this and to think that it's okay. We think back to that reporter who was killed in Virginia not long ago. The killer wanted to call attention to himself. He wasn't just angry at his girlfriend, though he blames her outright for driving him essentially to do this. He's also very angry at his mother as well. And the day before this happened, he actually went to his mother's house. He told her, according to his rant on Facebook, that in fact he was suicidal and that he was going to go out and kill somebody and kill people. And he says she didn't do anything. She didn't care. And you feel this anger welling up inside of him, which is surprising given that he was basically a youth mentor and worked in a place where he was trying to guide young kids to do the right thing. So how that happened, it's unclear. But the investigation, and the chief of police in Cleveland made this very clear, is very much ongoing. This is not over. They've got to go. They've got to look at the car. They've got to see what receipts may be inside that car, where he was, trace back where he may have stayed. It's a big area. There are farms. There are barns. You know, they want to sort of close the loop on this and make sure that he didn't hurt anybody else. That's what they were really afraid about, because initially he said he'd killed other people. He even gives locations of places where he allegedly killed people before shooting Mr. Godwin. They are concerned, and their fear is that in this time on the run, 2 days, from Sunday at 2 o'clock until just this morning, that maybe he would have interacted with other people and caused greater damage. It doesn't look like he did. 400 tips came in, one of those tips proving vital. He was in the McDonald's parking lot. He drove about 2 miles, according to one of our reporters on scene, 2 miles, and that's when he pulled over and killed himself as police apparently approached. But he did not fire at them. It doesn't seem he fired at anybody else. But they've really got to look back and make sure that that is, in fact, the case. The pin,
Art,
we've been talking to, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to just ask Art, the Pennsylvania State Police said, Art, they used what they call a pit maneuver to stop him and to capture him. Explain what a pit maneuver is.
Yeah, a pit maneuver is a fairly common technique used in law enforcement when a vehicle won't stop, when a law enforcement officer puts his red or blue lights on in the vehicle and you're in a pursuit with that particular vehicle. It's a maneuver that's trained. You have to train to be able to know how to do it. A lot of the vehicles now you see have these extended bumpers from law enforcement, and basically what you do is you approach the rear of the vehicle, generally the driver's side bumper, and with your front bumper on the passenger side, and try to just tap the vehicle to get it into a spin so that you can get the vehicle to stop. It's used all over the country. It's used a lot in vehicle pursuits, and it does work. It is a very useful technique.
Well, it's effective in this particular case.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, this is over with right now, but there's still a lot people want to learn. They want to learn lessons from this as well, especially the social media aspect of this, to try to make sure it doesn't happen again.
And we have time now. I mean, the tense manhunt portion is over, so now they can piece all this together at this point in time.
All right, Art Roderick, thanks very much. Cedric, thanks to you. Deb Farrick, thanks.